Can LOLZ come out and play?
I'm sorry. We're having a family day.
Hi, I'm Danny Nightmare.
And I'm Gory Movie.
And we're horror addicts.
And today we're reviewing Mom and Dad.
Written and directed by Brian Taylor and starring Nicolas Cage, Selma Blair, and Lance Hendrickson.
The film opens with a woman leaving her car on the train tracks. She gets out in time, but she leaves her infant child there, and well, you can only guess what happens next.
So not funny.
It seems like there's some kind of a signal being passed to the television or radio, who knows what. It's never fully explained, but it's making all of the parents in this suburban area want to kill their own kids.
They will only attack others if they get in a direct way of doing so.
The story primarily follows the Ryan family, mom, dad, the teenage daughter, and their young son. The parents in the Ryan family are Brent, played by Nicolas Cage, and Kendall, played by Selma Blair. These two are kind of already going through a midlife crisis. Kendall feels like her children don't need her anymore and she doesn't know what her purpose is, whereas Brent wants to know what happened to the young, cool, punk rocky kind of kid he used to be, who had all these big aspirations in life and never fully achieved them. What's really weird about this brainwashing that the parents are under is it only seems to affect them when they're in close proximity to their kids, and to everybody outside of their children, they seem fairly normal and polite.
The mom and dad actually kind of rekindled their marriage while trying to horribly murder their children.
It seems like this couple needed a project to bring them together, and apparently killing their kids is the one that they've stumbled upon.
It's almost romantic in a sick way.
Almost.
So is this frantic film that makes children think twice about talking back to their parents worth a watch?
Well, we'll get to that, but first we're gonna give you the good, the bad, and the gory.
And there will be spoilers, but don't worry, not till the end. We'll give you fair warning. I love how it was a movie made to completely uncage Nicolas Cage. The stereotype of everybody laughing about how he's always so crazy in his movies, this movie was intentionally made for that. And he goes nuts, so I was satisfied.
And there was a pleasant surprise in the film. We get to meet Brent's parents, and his father is played by Lance frickin' Hendrickson.
Boy, did he steal the show.
He can out-cage Nicolas Cage. And that first act is just non-stop action. In fact, the whole film is very well paced. It's pretty balls to the wall for the whole runtime.
And I love how they go through all the suspense and action and thrills, but there's no cheap jump scares, there's good gore, there's good violence.
And I really like all the subtle things that go into creating this suspenseful, kind of manic experience. There's the score, which is really great. It's got that kind of a pounding sound to it that amps up your adrenaline.
Yeah, this movie has like an amazing soundtrack. I love most of it. You got your 70s, your 80s, your 90s, punk rock, some funk, some pop. There's also some dubstep and some rap. I didn't care for that, but I don't know if we were supposed to.
What the hell?
While this is a comedy, there's a lot of themes in here that I think will give you guys a lot to talk about after you see the movie. The older stuff, I think, is supposed to represent, our generation, a parent's generation, whereas the dubstep, the rap, the hip hop, that is supposed to represent this new generation, the children's generation, and mixing them together is kind of showing how these two generations in this film are colliding, literally.
Underneath all the crazy violence and shocking moments, I think this actually is kind of a deep and sweet movie. It's actually kind of my version of Full House. Everybody learns something in the end. As we said earlier, the parents kind of rekindled their love for each other as they set out on this task to murder their children. And the children grow and they learned a lesson throughout it all. They even kind of throw back some of the quotes the parents say to them in the very end. It's kind of an endearing moment. And you could take all that deep meaning out of it and still just enjoy it for a movie that parents want to kill their kids.
You can enjoy Nicolas Cage walking around like a Fruit Loop with actual Fruit Loops on his face, singing nursery rhymes and trying to kill his kids. Because that's entertainment.
Oh yeah. Shut up and take my money now.
I will say that this isn't going to be a film for everybody. This film really is going to try to push your boundaries. This film has people throwing strollers in front of cars and trying to kill their babies and children. So if that's something you can't handle, stay away.
It goes into some really dark places involving child abuse, and it could get you triggered.
There were parts of this that were really hard for me to watch the first time I saw it. On second viewing, I think I understood a little more about what was going on with the film thematically, and so I was able to appreciate it more as sort of an allegory, but a lot of people are not gonna find that entertaining, so there's your warning.
The movie also, I won't tell you how it ends, but it's pretty abrupt. I'm still kind of not quite sure if I like that or not.
We're gonna go into that a lot more with the spoiler section though, because I do have some thoughts on that to share with you. My big complaint, mother flippin' blood on the camera, for the love of God. If it is not a found footage film, don't splatter blood on the goddamn camera. It takes you right out of the movie. It reminds you that there is a camera there when you're not supposed to be thinking of cameras. So, movies, stop doing it.
Don't paint the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you like violence, because this movie has loads of it.
Oh yeah, we've got a kill count of 8, and that's only the kills we see on screen. There's a few other ones that are implied, and there are loads of casualties.
Early on in this movie, there is a huge riot that takes place at a private school where a bunch of angry parents show up to murder their children. The football field is covered in carnage. You got parents attacking their children. You got security and teachers attacking the parents, trying to save the children. It is just a delightful mess.
And that's just that one scene. You also get patricide, matricide, infanticide. Oh yeah, I know all the fancy words for murder.
You got bondage, garden tools, and vehicular homicide.
Stabbing, kid paste, and suffocation.
Police brutality and blood spurtage.
Power tools, kitchenware, kids with guns, and balls of fire.
And don't forget the scene where she literally tries to kill her daughter with a wire hanger. How late of a stage of abortion is that?
No wire hangers. And let's not forget my favorite part, butt stabbing.
Yeah, you got Lance Hendrickson shanking Nick Cage in his lower hindquarters. Amazing.
Cinematic gold.
With all this carnage going on, was there any room for some nudity in this film? Yes, in one flashback of a young Brent doing donuts in the parking lot, he's got a pair of titties in his face.
Yeah.
And those are the only ones you see, but they go back to that flashback a couple of times.
So, should you see it?
This movie was a fun story that just kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. I wanted to know what was going to happen to the kids. I wanted to know how crazy Cage was going to get. I wanted to see Lance Hendricks stab him in the butt some more. I kind of didn't even want to end. I've seen it twice now, and I still get sad every time it ends. I personally can't wait to own it, so then it never ends.
I will say the first time I saw this movie, I liked it, but I was still a little unsure about parts of it. The second time I watched it, I enjoyed it so much more, and it is definitely one that I'm gonna say you should own. There's some great rewatch value here. It is really funny, and this is very unlike any other horror film I've seen. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you love yourself some crazy Cage, this is the movie for you.
I've seen it twice. I liked it the first time, I loved it the second time, and I can't wait to find somebody who hasn't seen it so I can have them over to watch it a third time.
Yes, it's an experience so crazy, it needs to be shared.
With Cage, sharing is caring.
Now, we talked a lot about how the first time we saw this, we didn't necessarily know how we felt about it. A lot of that had to do with the ending. It ends in mid-frickin' sentence.
And I was a little almost scorned by that the first time I saw it.
I wanted to see if this situation was going to be temporary, and if it was, what happens to all these parents afterwards? What happens to their society afterwards? And yeah, I'm a little bummed that I didn't get that resolution. I also wanted to know, are the parents going to get free? They're still tied up at the end. We don't really know what's going to happen to these characters, and I have to admit, that's a little frustrating.
But like life, I'm slowly starting to accept it.
Typically, an ending like this would be very off-putting for me. In this film, it kind of works. I think the reason why is because this is such a thematic film, and even though the story was left unresolved, thematically it had a solid ending. Ending it right on that spot there where the kids are asking their dad if he loves them, and he says, yes, I love you, but sometimes I just wanna, and then it cuts. It really drives home what the whole point of this movie is.
Selma Blair's character gives a monologue where it kind of talks about having children and growing up and how there's all this build to it, and then it just happens.
Yeah, she talks about how you look forward to having kids one day, how monumental it's going to be to create this life, and how terrifying and how important, and how when it happens, it's not quite what you thought it would be. And then before you know it, it just ends. Your kids move out, and what was the point? I think that's what they wanted to do with the ending. It just ends, and you're like, well, what was the point of all that? Well, that was the point. And that kind of ties back to what the high school teacher was saying earlier about this replacement culture. And then the high school student whose phone he's taken says, but that's the newest model. And he's like, yeah, you both didn't understand what I was saying and completely illustrated my point. So essentially, the ending of the film is the high school teacher. And those that don't get it, well, they're the teenage girl. But we would love to hear your interpretations in the comments below. Share with us what you think and whether or not you liked the ending or the film as a whole.
Was Cage crazy enough for you? Will you be able to look at your children or your parents the same ever again?
Will you be able to look at Lance Henriksen the same way again? We want to know. And on a personal note, which one of us do you think is more likely to go crazy Cage? Me or Danny? Let us know, for LOLZ's sake.
I guess either way, he's lucky that he's half demon. Thanks for watching. Rage Cage.